Good evening. This is the Elementary School Reuse and Disposition Advisory Group. Today is May 4th. It's a little after 6 p.m. We'll start today's meeting. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all please rise and face the flag.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, tonight's meeting is being televised by the town cable station, so it is being recorded. Is anybody recording in addition to the town in the audience tonight? Okay, thank you. We'll get right into our agenda. Mr. Bernali?
Minutes.
We'll accept the minutes from the April 6th meeting.
I'll make a motion we accept the minutes for April 6th.
A second on that? Okay. Motion is to accept, and we'll accept the meeting minutes from April 6th. Go right to all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, I believe Ms. Jacobson is here and would like to address the folks at home about the nature of this group and how it was formed before we get started.
Good evening, members of the advisory group, members of the audience. Thank you for having me. I just want to give a brief update to the public and those who may be watching on television as to the purpose of this group and how we went about forming it. This group was put together through appointment back in the late fall. I believe began meeting, that was toward the end of the year, began meeting in January. Amidst a number of snowstorms and other weather conditions that was quite a challenge for the group. So we thank you for coming out during all of that. The group consists of a number of different representatives. First of all, from the neighborhoods, from each of the schools that we're looking at, which are Mary D. and Julia B. We brought in residents from those areas. They will be impacted by this, and we felt that we wanted them to have a voice in this. We also have representatives from the school department, from the planning division, and then from the planning board, the school committee, the board of selectmen, and the finance committee. So we've got a broad group here. During the process, the advisory group brought in assistance and input from Joe Fahey, facilities manager at the school department, from Caleb Moody, who is the building commissioner, and of course Matt Benoit, who is our town planner, has been adding staff assistance and doing research and bringing forward to the group some information that they may need to process, to look at data, to look at information on the buildings, and to understand what it is that we're looking at. So the intent of the advisory group is to look at all different options, what might be available to the town. Should we, and make a recommendation to me, the town manager, and then I would go and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. And I believe they are looking at both buildings separately as to what each may be best suited for. Is it best suited to keep the buildings, to lease the buildings, to sell the buildings, and what type of use may be best in those buildings based on zoning, based on lowest impact, negative impact to the neighborhoods. We want to make sure that we do this right, and we want to make sure that this is an open process. So that's why the group was brought together. I thank you so much for all of your time. I know how hard you've all worked, and I know the commitment that you've made to getting this done. We did put forth an aggressive timeline. We asked the committee to kindly come forward with a recommendation, if possible, by July. The reason we say that is these buildings will likely be vacant in the fall, and I say likely because the school committee has not yet voted to declare the building surplus. They are waiting just to make sure the middle school project moves along on time and on schedule, which it is. And once that is absolutely determined, then the school committee would be taking a vote likely to declare it surplus, and at that point the buildings will be vacant, and we need to make sure that we have a plan in place for how to proceed. So that's a little bit of the history, and again, I want to thank all of you and people from the public who've come forward and given recommendations and suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Want me to do a presentation?
Sure. Here it is.
Good evening, everyone. Julia Bancroft, Mary D. residents, community of Auburn, members of the group. My name is Matthew Benoit. I'm the town planner for Auburn. And I put together a short presentation. Don't want to keep us here all day. I know it's very nice, warm outside and getting warmer in here as we sit here. So just want to go through a few short things about the two schools before we open it up for public comment. I have a feeling I'm in the way for some of you folks, so I'm going to step over to the side. So hold on. So we're going to look at Mary D. Stone first. Mary D., obviously right behind us here at Town Hall. This building was built in 1928. It's got a long, rich history with the town and its residents. Unfortunately, as it looks, could be coming offline depending on the future use. But we're looking at a parcel of land shared by both Town Hall and Mary D. with the playground and a small piece of athletic field in the rear of the property. Before I get into some of the things about the site, I just wanted to make it clear, despite this entire parcel being owned by the town, on the deeds from 1888, when this was purchased by the town, there's actually 5 different parcels of land that aren't determined on a map, but determined by coordinates. And they're really hard to decipher given the handwriting and the age of the document on the deed. But this is a rough idea of what those parcels look like, just to give you an idea. As we're going to look at the future uses, we have to determine if the future of Mary D. Stone could be sold or given away, not given away, but sold. But you also have to consider the access and the fact that there are separate deeds here, shared by the town. So some of the details, built in 1928, looking at just over 28,000 square feet, a gross living area on approximately a 1 acre lot. That 1 acre lot is that blue lot that you see there. The assessed value of that is about $2.1 million. That's the building itself, not the property. One good thing about it, the windows and furnace were replaced in 2006. But some of the concerns about the site is it shares a parking lot with a right-of-way access through the town hall parking lot. So there's only one means of egress onto Church Street. Makes that very difficult. It doesn't conform with the current parking bylaw. So the number of spaces versus the square foot of the building makes it a non-conforming use in the residential district. There's a lot of, when I say a lot, there's many ADA compliance issues with this site if it were to be brought up to current stretch energy code or building code. From little flights of stairs to there not being an elevator, width of doorways, et cetera, it goes on and on. It's going to require a considerable amount of interior rehab just for those ADA compliance issues, but most importantly, including roof repair. We're going to come back to both. I just wanted to go real briefly on each one before we open it up to the public. Julia Bancroft, one lot. It's about 6 acres. It's kind of an aerial photography from it. You can see the front building to the left, the original site, and then the addition off the back, the ball field and the parking lot. This was also built in 1928. Seems there was an initiative to build schools at that time. The lower level in 1956 was the addition of the project, and the modular section off the middle towards the north section of the property in 2002. It's just about 31,500 square feet of gross living area on a 6 acre lot. Estimated value assessed record just for the building is $2.5 million. And the upper level and the lower level serviced by 2 separate heating systems, which, as this group has learned, if were to be sectioned off, could be divided for separate uses if necessary. Some of the concerns, again, same as Mary D, doesn't conform with the current parking bylaw on the minimum space requirements. I believe there's 72 spaces, and given the square footage of the building, wouldn't have enough parking spaces for that square foot, making it another non-conforming use. ADA compliance issues, not as many as Mary D, because the lower level is on the first floor, so it could be utilized sooner than some of the areas that have stairs. And again, considerable amount of rehab, just like Mary D. Stretch energy code, building code needs to be brought up to date with compliance. So several issues on the site, on both sites really, for future use and development. So real quick, I'll try not to get too far into this, but these are both zoned residential A. I made my research very easy, so I was looking up one zoning code. But there's some permitted uses outright, including forestry and harvesting of forest products, livestock or raising of animals on lots that are over 5 acres. Outdoor recreational use that's not conducted as gameful business. Those are permitted uses, just outright, wouldn't need a special permit variance or whatnot. Other uses that need a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals be townhouse or apartments, congregated housing for elderly, handicap, hospital, sanitarium, nursing, philanthropic or charitable institutions, a broadcasting facility or other governmental uses not listed in the bylaws. Special permit from the ZBA for those uses. Another permitted use via site plan approval from the planning board. Nonprofit educational institution, church, library, museum, daycare, childcare, cultural school, or a public recreational facility. Government administration building, fire, or police station. Reservoir pumping station, treatment plant, or hot or water supply use. Any other uses that are not listed in the zoning bylaw would be prohibited uses and would need either a variance from the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, or would require the parcel to be rezoned at town meeting. It's not something that happens often anywhere, not just Auburn. Just wanted to go over the uses. These are some of the things that the group's been examining, in addition to the site conditions. And this meeting today gives us an opportunity to hear your feedback as the neighbors of these buildings, and we'd like to hear what you have to say about any ideas for future use for this parcel. I appreciate your time. I'm going to turn it back over to the chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. First, thank you for everybody coming out tonight. I think everybody here is here because you have an interest and care about those buildings as we do, and its impact, whatever changes are to come for them, for those neighborhoods. My name is Kevin Kennedy. This is my first advisory group being involved with in town, and then I got stuck, not stuck I should say, but I was elected the chairperson of it. So I have to thank my fellow advisory group members for guiding me through this process. This is all new to me, and we have a lot of experience here in this room. And like I said, everybody up here, as the town manager said, we're here for the reasons of we want to see the best for these buildings. A lot of us went to school here, have children still in these schools here, so we want to see the best. So I'm just going to go quickly over what we've done to date, and then we'll get right into getting your feedback, because that's why we have you here. We want to hear what you folks have to say and what your feelings are on the reuse of these facilities. We started back on January 21st. Quickly learned kind of what our marching orders were going to be. Got some education from the town planner as to what he just discussed with you here, what the zoning was of those buildings and what their existing conditions were. February 2nd, we went on our first road trip. We went on a tour of Julia Bancroft. Mr. Fahey did an outstanding job of taking us through those buildings and explaining everything that's being done, and his the beloved floors, his terrazzo floors, I believe that he loved in that building very much. We all learned about terrazzo floors that evening, but we got to walk through that facility and saw what it had to offer and what some of its limitations were. March 2nd, we came and had our meeting over at Mary D. and got the same thing. We got to go through that building and get a tour of the facility.
No terrazzo floors.
No terrazzo floors in Mary D. It's very disappointing. March 16th, we kind of asked the town manager for a little bit of guidance. We started getting some input, and we didn't know how in-depth our report and recommendation had to be. And we came, the town manager came back with the mission statement for us, which is, and I'll read it, the group is to provide a use recommendation to the town manager with the assistance of town staff for the repurposing of each building while considering public feedback, building conditions, and zoning restrictions. We discussed some possible uses for Mary D. At that meeting relevant for additional town office space. We had received feedback through the town planner from all the town departments that were looking for additional space and what type of usage and how much, what they were looking for. So the discussion was, its proximity to the town hall, was that the Mary D. site may be a good location for additional town office space. On April 6th, we had an additional meeting. One of those town entities that had reported back that they were looking for additional space was the Auburn Housing Authority. The director of the Auburn Housing Authority was at the meeting and addressed us, as well as several members of the the authority itself. Spoke to the group as to what their needs were. Just some highlights, notes that I had, and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, that they have a list of over 200 seniors currently on a wait list for housing through the Auburn Housing Authority. 57 of them, I believe, and these numbers may have changed since the time, or I may have them slightly off. 57 of them are Auburn residents, seniors in Auburn that are looking for housing currently, 2 in an emergency situation, and 7 who are currently residing, but due to changes in their health need to go from a second floor down to a first floor. So that was an interesting statistic that there's that much of a need in town for that. And that brings us to our May 4th public meeting, and again, it's for citizens' feedback. And I'll refer to the town planner on the best way to have folks come up.
Sure, so, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, this is an opportunity for you folks, if you have any feedback you'd like to provide us, please step to the podium, raise your hand, the chair will call your name, address your, please introduce yourself and your address, and we'd gladly like to hear what you have to say. Oh, just please raise your hand and then come up.
Just, you can come right up. Well, thank you for being first.
Hi, my name is Susan Wiegel, and I live at 138 Central Street, which is just stone's throw from here. And I wanted to speak a little bit about both buildings. Naturally, Mary D is in my neighborhood, so I think everyone from Auburn Center neighborhood and all over Auburn appreciates that this is the only historic neighborhood in town, and Mary D is a big part of that. We're all a little disappointed my grandchildren won't be going there, but I understand all of the reasons for closing the schools. What I wanted to speak about is I chaired another building committee, reuse committee for the high school, and we went through a process in doing that of finding uses for the building, but also funding mechanisms that could be used for the building. So I don't know how deeply you've gotten into the National Register eligibility and anything like that. To my knowledge, right now, neither one of those schools is on the what they call a census for historic buildings, but they're both eligible to be, and that's not a very difficult process. But being on the National Register could really impact what you do with the building in terms of funding. There are grants available for public uses. There are lots of grants available for private uses. Tax credits are a big thing in getting, if you were to be using it privately, you can get tax credits. So there's a lot of different things going on with that, and I just want to make sure that you know, I have a lot of the information. Unfortunately, I didn't get to you sooner, but I do have a lot of the information on that. It would be absolutely, when you go out for bids on anything, you need to be able to prove that you have this eligibility. The second thing I just wanted to mention about Julie Bancroft, which is the school I went to as a child, and in terms of its use. In fact, in terms of the use of either school, you know, I think housing is an excellent thing to do. I think Mary D is especially, you know, good for government use, or perhaps the school department offices could be there. I know other people have mentioned those things too, but my biggest thing is, let's not tear the old part of either of those buildings down. They're important to the landscape down by Stoneville and the landscape up here. And I guess that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Paul Erickson. I live in 6 Church Street, right across the parking lot. I am not so concerned about what you do with the building, because I know that's going to have to be an economic situation. Those decisions are going to have to be based on hard economics. I am concerned about the property itself, the yard. I've lived here for 44 years. And when I first came here, that yard was not used for too much other than selling drugs. I give credit to the powers that have been over the years, that has turned into a very popular field. All summer and even in the winter, you have young parents, you have grandparents bringing small kids up there. It's a safe place in the yard for bicycling. I stopped my kids bicycling on the roads soon after I moved here. It's too dangerous. But we've got a lot of little kids around here riding bicycles. And whatever is done with the building, I am concerned about that park area, that it be used for a neighborhood recreational center, that people can go out after supper and have a jaunt with the kids. I think that's a very important resource. We have a very close neighborhood here in this area. And I'd like to see those young parents and the older parents be able to enjoy it with their kids. That's my main concern. Thank you.
Just to your concern, Mr. Erickson, just so you know, there has been quite a bit of discussion amongst the group regarding preservation of open space, not to lose any fields that may currently be within the community. So those concerns have been discussed up here as well. Turn the group. Yes.
Hello, my name is RJ Skaza. I live at 11 Church Street, directly across from Mary D. Stone School. For the last 15 years, I've lived across from Mary D., and I come out my door every day, and I get to see the face of the building before I leave to go to work at a school myself, and I'm assistant principal in Marlborough, Massachusetts. For me, it's important that the building is preserved, specifically the face of the building. I had once heard that it's a historic landmark. I don't know for sure if that is true. However, I will say from looking at it for the last 15 years, it does present as a landmark that I would not want to see have to be taken down. I had also been told that there is a stone in front of Mary D. that marks a certain elevation, and there's a date that times back for a while when that was initially put there. I would echo Paul's sentiments about the yard. I have taken my dog, Sam, behind Mary D. for many, many years now, and I have shared many moments with surrounding residents, and I've even shared some time with Paul, and we have talked about how just lovely a field that is, and how wonderful it is for the kids to have an opportunity to access that playscape and access the field, the soccer games that go on there and so forth. I think that it's a logical decision, and I'm just one man. However, I would like to make my suggestion that it does maintain, it does continue to be in the hands of the town, and I think logically it would make sense to have it become the school administrative offices, just because of the building itself, the proximity to Town Hall. And then I think it could preserve some of those extracurricular opportunities for children. You could still have soccer after hours, and you could still have it open to the town residents, as Paul had suggested.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about the fact that it's probably going to be more than one thing because of the amount of space.
Kevin. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. If that gentleman, could he please, sir, I'm so very sorry. Could you please spell your name, your last name?
Sure, it's S as in Sam,
It's easy.
K-A-Z-A.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
I hope you haven't heard of that name.
No, actually, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Cindy Ryan. I live at 2 Church Street. And you'll all be happy to know that my dog, Black Magic, died several years ago, and he terrorized the town center and the schoolyard. I just would like to sort of echo Sue Wiegel in that this is the only historic district in Auburn that I know of. And to keep the building, obviously my house was built in 1802, all these houses were old, so we're into old houses and old buildings, but to keep that building, the integrity of the old part of the building, no matter what happens, and to just use discretion and somehow maybe involve us again for either condos. I mean, I think I've heard so many people that there's a list of people that are ready to buy a condo if it turns into condos. But senior housing is great, at school committee or any kind of administrative offices. Just please keep the building as it is. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi there, my name is Jim Dunphy. I live on 8 Vinyl Street. I guess I'll be the voice of Vinyl Street for Julia. I kind of echo what they're saying. We'd like to keep the lot as is, maybe no new houses, nothing going up there. If you want to do something with the building, so be it. I know that something has to happen there. I don't know if thinking outside the box is taking up, there's a lot of land past the baseball field. Buying some of that, maybe that makes sense for, I don't know, some kind of sporting place outside of the ball field. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, everyone. Steve Miller, 9 Arrowhead. So I live right over there. So I have a question for you. If this was to be senior housing, would the building be raised? Would it be converted to housing? How would that work?
Then our school.
If this was to become senior citizen housing, would you raise the building and then build senior citizen housing on the property, or convert this building?
The only discussions regarding housing was, and the interest from the Housing Authority was for the Julia Bankrupt property. Because of its location, it's on a bus line, proximity to St. Joseph's, there was a whole bunch of reasons that the Housing Authority, it fit all of their parameters for structures. We haven't, as a group, had any discussion relative to Mary D. into conversion other than the logical town office spaces, and as to what spaces and what groups would move in, that would probably be left to the town manager and the department heads to determine how that would be utilized if that came to be.
But I'd also like to echo the sentiment of the importance of this for recreation. Having taken my own kids here when they were very young, and I see a lot of people moving in with very young kids, and this is really an asset, this play area here. In fact, I'd like to see it expanded. But also, while I have you here, I'd like to also make a pitch that I think would be great for the town to have a town pool, to be revenue neutral. Revenue neutral, which means the people who use the pool would pay for the pool, and I think that might be a consideration from one of these sites as well.
Not sure we'll have any input on that, but there is someone in the back of the room that maybe we could, it'll be the next group, the next advisory group put together. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mark Bell, Warfield Street. Do you know what's going to cost to bring these two buildings up to American Disability Act codes?
I'm sorry, what would it take to bring them up?
Yeah, what would it cost to bring those two buildings up to the ADA codes?
A lot.
We were fortunate we had, and again, I'm not going to, can you go over who came in to speak to us regarding from?
Sure. Through the chair, we had a representative who works for Mass Development that serves on our planning board, gave us some rough number ideas for kind of what you're asking about, but the ADA stuff alone, I mean, an elevator can cost somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000, in addition to doorways, stairs, ramps,
Bathrooms, everything.
Bathrooms and everything. We don't have an actual ballpark number, but you can expect that number to be quite large.
You need parking too, ADA parking too.
The same as that as well, yes.
I'd like to see you take JP and put a for sale sign in front of it. Isn't that zoned for business too?
Through the chair, it is not. It's zoned residential A.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just think sell it, you know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Matt, do you have the last name? You have his last name?
Can you spell it?
Mark, what was your last name? Can you spell that for us?
Yeah, B-I-N-N-A-L-L.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to, yes, sir.
Barb Carlson, 26 Mill Street, and also 25 Vinyl Street. My wife and I own 13 acres on Vinyl Street. And right now, we have several things happening with that property. When you came, and I got wind of the Auburn Housing Authority, thinking about going forward, I thought that would be a great idea rather than the other situations that I'm being faced with. Unfortunately, this is a year everybody's out spending money, so everybody's looking to buy property, do different projects, and in my opinion, my wife's opinion, we would love to be into in Auburn housing. I was several years ago back with my mother, and the Auburn Housing Authority helped me out considerably. I know it helps a lot of veterans, and that's a key thing in my world, is to help a veteran. I would love to see the Auburn Housing Authority go forward and try to put a program together. I think my wife and I would be interested in forming a relationship. Maybe we could work out an agreement. It is the estate of my parents, and I've been paying taxes for quite some time. And I do want to make a move because I've never had so much interest as it has been in the last 6 months. But as far as going forward with the Auburn Housing Authority, I really believe it's a critical situation to help our people and to help veterans. And if we can get backing, I somehow know Jim McGovern might be interested in giving us some support. That would be a wonderful situation, and we could probably move forward and have a great development down there and keep it low-keyed and still have a nice neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Could you just put your addresses one more time? You had two?
25 Vinyl Street, 26 Mill Street.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to, yes, ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Pauline Maurice. I live at 14 Vinyl Street. I've been there since 1968, which is 47 years. It's a beautiful neighborhood. In fact, Nancy Drive is here tonight, and these people purchased this property because it's a quiet, beautiful neighborhood. You can go up there 12 months a year, and the place is just beautiful. When we moved in, it was K-6, Julia Bancroft, and then they converted it 3, 4, and 5. I hope that this board is responsible enough to keep this neighborhood as beautiful as it is today as it was 40, 50 years ago. I understand we need better schools for the children, even though Mr. Fahey claims that both of these schools are good schools, especially the floor. Somebody mentioned the floor, and the floors in Julia Bancroft are incredible. My concern is more buildings going up. Is it going to be sold privately and more buildings, or senior housing, more buildings? In Mr. Johnson's property on 25 Vinyl Street, there's a lot of wetlands. Is it going to remain wetlands, or is that just going to be filled in housing? Years ago, yes, he did mine some minerals out of there for his mother's nursing home expenses. He destroyed the roads, the dust in our homes, the children. He put up a paper fence for security that was not worth anything, and we put up with this. And he said he would fix the road if it was damaged. He did not fix the road. It's us taxpayers that had to fix his road. I'm just hoping that this land is not sold and his land goes with it, and we have a row of houses to look at after these people on Nancy Drive here were well represented. We want to keep our neighborhood beautiful. Our grandchildren are coming in at this point. In fact, most of Nancy Drive are original owners. They've been there over 40 years. I'm there 47 years with my husband. And the people that are coming back are our children. Does that say something for a neighborhood? It's a cul-de-sac. Vinyl Street is dead end. It's quiet. We want it to remain somewhat quiet. We know there's going to be more activity. That's not a problem. But the problem is if it's too many houses and automobiles and safety. How about safety? That's like on Homestead Ave. A house came down in housing, not HUD, but whatever housing, please help me. Habitat. They're putting a duplex in. These people are not happy. And I, as a taxpayer with my husband, I support these neighbors. They can come in and put a duplex in where you and I and everybody in this room, we could not do it. They do not have to abide by rules and regulations. I don't see how fair that is. I mean, I'm all for housing, whatever housing. These people need to be someplace. But to put a duplex, and the cars coming in now, that's a narrow, windy, up and down street, no sidewalks. It's a big safety issue up there. How would you like that in your neighborhood? Maybe not. So I'm concerned as a responsible taxpayer, my husband and the neighbors keep this neighborhood pristine. It's beautiful at all times. That's all I ask, is to keep it the way it is. I mean, beautiful. Yes, something is going to go in there, and that's not a problem with any of us, or most of us. I don't know. I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking for myself. But it's a concern. It's a concern. It could be in any one of your neighborhoods. And yes, preserving the old buildings and the charm and the New England, and I think it's great. But I know you will do what you have to do, but I would like to realize that a responsible decision is going to be made for Vinyl Street and Nancy Drive personally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address any concerns or?
Through the chair, I would suggest that we invite Sue Wiegel to a meeting so that she can discuss preservation of the facades on those two buildings, because I know she's very knowledgeable on it.
Mrs. Wiegel, would you be willing to come to our next meeting on May 18th?
May 18th?
Yes.
It sounds good right now.
Okay. Let's check calendars, but thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, the board's hoping to make a decision relatively soon before the end of the school year, whether it be May 18th or a meeting to follow. So the purpose of this meeting, obviously, is to get your feedback. So if there's anything you feel you want to inform us about or say, now is the time. Our next meeting wouldn't be in this room. It would be in the planning board room.
I just have a question. Are your regular meetings?
Microphone, sorry. For the folks at home.
Are your regular meetings open to the public?
Excuse me, could we have your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry, Cindy Ryan, 2 Church Street, right there. Are the regular meetings open to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So May 18th, any of us could go. It's just not going to be as an open forum like this. Okay.
Yeah, all the meetings are open except for executive sessions.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And where will that be?
Next door. The small room as you pass as you go up the stairs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Betty Bczynska. I live at 7 Nancy Drive with my husband Joe. I'm a former Auburn Housing Authority board member. I am currently employed at the Auburn Housing Authority part-time. And one question is, has anyone else come to you inquiring about the property, like private businesses, private builders? Have they come looking to you, wanting to purchase the property to build homes or anything?
Nobody's approached this board, whether they've got, anybody has come through the town planner's office or the town manager's office. I'm not aware of that.
And the Housing Authority would love to have that Julia Bancroft School building, the top building, the original building, if we could find the funding with help from the town to put in elderly and veteran housing, we would keep the facade of the building. We would keep the building as it stands on the outside so that it looks just like it looks now. But we would need help in finding funding from our politicians, from anyone in the government that we could approach to give us money, because there is such a great need for especially elderly and veteran housing in this town. So we would appreciate you keeping us in your thoughts on anything that you're going to do to help us bring more housing to Auburn. Thanks.
And before you leave the podium, could you just spell your last name for us?
Bacinskas.
Thank you.
Betty. Yep.
Thank you. There's no way I was wondering that.
No. Anybody else?
Pretty much it. We can either discuss it as a
Is
group.
that meeting on the 18th? Is that going to televise?
The 18th meeting, are we scheduled? No, I don't believe that one will be televised.
Why?
Haven't discussed it yet. We could.
Yes, sir.
Barb Carlson, 25 Vinyl Street. I'd just like to ask you, what is your latest date that you're thinking on making a decision?
Again, anything that this board does is only a recommendation for reuse to the town manager. Any decisions for the buildings would go further through the town manager's office. So this is just a group of citizens here that are going to make a recommendation based on your input, based on input from the departments that have said they have some needs. So we're solely making a recommendation. I know it's maybe just semantics with wording, but you know, the decision is not for the final use of those buildings. It isn't really here. We're going to make a recommendation to the town manager's office. That's through our mission. But again, we've been asked before the end of the fiscal year, so before July 1, but I think we'll be in advance of that date. I don't see us taking more than 1 or 2 more meetings, and we've been meeting every couple weeks before we can draft something together and forward it. So.
Okay. No, I respect that. On the other question that was just asked, the gentleman asked if anybody, has anybody asked about the property? I don't believe you've put anything in the newspaper to advertise that property.
No, and again, we're not at that process. We're not at that stage in this process where it would, after a recommendation went back to the town, if it was going to be put to surplus or put for sale, if that was one of the recommendations, and the town manager, through her, processes, was going to do that, then yes, everything would have to be advertised. So we're not even, we're not there yet.
Okay. Thank you. Respect.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Roberta Braids, Chair of the Auburn Housing Authority. And I need you to know, to understand that the Auburn Housing Authority has no money to buy the property. It would have to be given to us by the town before we could even try to get a partnership to build or remodel so that we could make it into apartments. We have federal and state funding, none of which can be used to buy any property. It has to be donated to us. So until that happens, but we can't move forward in anything on this to say whether what we can do with this land or how we would do it until we have the land in our possession. Then we can go after funding from other sources to have a partnership with someone else. So I think that's very important that the voters of this town realize that. But the demand for housing is really phenomenal. We could fill probably triple what we have now easily tomorrow if we had the housing available. The other thing is the town is supposed to have at least 10% of property for low income. We have around 3%. So in order to get state and federal grants, the town is supposed to have 10%. So it would really be a good investment for the town as well. Thank you.
Mrs. Briggs, can I just get your address one more time?
36 Arrowhead Ave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience have any comments? Like to address the advisory group? Is there anybody on the advisory group that has anything they'd like to, well, we've got some representatives of the neighborhoods here to address regarding any of their concerns or?
Through the chair.
Chris is just showing off there. Last fall, the Finance Committee had actually approached the town manager about this upcoming, the buildings hopefully becoming available. We approached it from our concern of vacant public buildings and very quickly a possibility of some significant expenses and making sure they're secure, safe, and we don't have liabilities for our emergency, police, fire, et cetera. So we pushed to get this committee put together. Thank you, Julie. Great job in doing that, and a great group of people here. The idea being that as soon as these facilities are taken offline from the school department, that we would try to make sure we had that next use either in place or some good ideas that could be turned over very quickly. In all cases, the town manager should be approached by any private, Mr. Carlson, you should be approaching the town manager, having some discussions there. These properties are all going to have to go through the boards through town for any change of use from the school department. There'll still be residential A. So that's all going to be a process. It's going to take time. The fact that it seems that most of us here want to at least keep the facades or the oldest parts of the old buildings, that's going to be the biggest concern because those facilities are going to have the most upgrade needed to turn them into something else. Relative to the Housing Authority, my guess is when that decision is made, we would love to probably turn that over as soon as possible for no better reason than the town won't be responsible necessarily for their upkeep, safety, liability, insurance, that kind of thing. So this process hopefully is going to move very quickly in terms of decisions. We just wanted to make darn sure we had neighborhood input as to the right things to do. Relative to the open spaces, we're in just about full agreement that nobody wants to impact either open space that's part of those facilities and part of the grounds around them. There seems to be more variables with the Julie Bancroft property for reuse of that, especially with the Housing Authority, which is a great opportunity. Mary D. is a different set of circumstances from a Finance Committee perspective. As soon as we were told that this may be great for some additional space for municipal or even school department, that kind of thing, I sort of cringed because that's extra expense in terms of another facility to keep up. But at the risk of losing that integrity within this historic district, that's something we're going to have to look at. So please stay informed on this. We don't necessarily always have TV meetings, but I believe we're all open, and if we fill up that room in there, then we'll try to find a bigger room as we make some decisions over the next, I would think, month.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Again, Pauline Maurice, 14 Vinyl Street. I'd like to bring something to your attention. Vinyl Street is a one-way in and a one-way out. It's a bottleneck. It's a safety issue. We've been there many years, and when the school has had functions years back, parking was on both sides of the street. A fire truck, an ambulance would have been hard-pressed to get in there, and the school probably had over 500 people in there. It could have happened. It didn't, as far as I know. I've only been there 47 years. I don't know everything. But my point is, it is just an incredible neighborhood. It's these people over here that manicure it, that love it, that you can go down that street any time, any year, any month, I mean, and it's just beautiful. We want to keep it that way. We know it's going to be a little busier. Oh, well. But it's a bottleneck. It's a big safety issue. So if you get a lot of cars coming and going, just come stand. Mr. Stencil knows. He lives behind there. Just go down by the mailbox and sit there when the buses are coming in and out, and take some pictures and see what goes on. It's can be hazardous, and it's busy, and we know it. So we don't go out and come back and forth at that hour. You learn by trial and error, but it's a beautiful neighborhood. And to see a track of housing, the back of the parking lot, whatever, and beyond, think about it as your neighborhood, as your backyard. Do you want that? If it stays the way it is, and a nice landscape, whatever, it will complement the neighborhood. We know it's going. It has to go. And yes, the town has to sell it for these reasons. But it's a one-way in and a one-way out. It's a safety issue.
Okay.
Thank you. Again.
Thank you.
Through the chair, traffic is always addressed by the ZBA and the planning board. Just as we changed the road over at the new middle school, it's been widened to accompany or accommodate the traffic of the trucks and the cars. So any road that we use over there will meet all the safety considerations of the planning board and the ZBA. There's no concern about that.
Okay. If we don't have any other public comment, we're going to close out the public comment portion of this. We'll leave the group if anybody else in the group has anything else they'd like to address while the public is here. Town manager?
Thank you. I just want to confirm that the May 18th meeting will be televised. Chris is okay with that. It can fit into the schedule. We'll make sure it's televised so you can watch it from home. And if you just give us a heads up on your meeting schedule, we'll coordinate to make sure that it is so people can listen. And I just want to thank all of you, too. It's very interesting to hear your comments. It's great to get the input. This is not the end of the process. As the chair has said, the group will make a recommendation to me. I plan on bringing this very public to the Board of Selectmen with a recommendation. This is a community decision. At the end, it's the town manager's decision to make, but I will tell you, I didn't want to make this by myself and never had any intention to do that. That's why we wanted the committee to form. And moving forward, this is going to be a community project. It impacts everybody in Auburn, whether you're a taxpayer or whether you're a neighbor, whether you're in a butter. So this is an important, both buildings are important, and the committee's done a great job. This will not be the end of it. I will tell you that once they make their recommendation, then there'll be additional opportunities, because I will make sure that myself and Matt, when we go to the Board of Selectmen, again, that's at a public meeting. So we want to keep this process open, transparent, get as much input as we can, look at the financial impacts. And to echo Kevin Hussey from the Finance Committee, one of our main concerns was that both buildings would be vacant, and that is not good for a neighborhood. You know, the sooner that we can get something going in these buildings, the better it is. Vacant buildings cost more on insurance. They tend to have more issues with the facilities. They tend to have more repairs that are needed, and it costs just to keep a building going. So we are, number one, anxious to get a decision, but I will tell you, it has to be the right decision. And if it means waiting a little bit, then we will wait a little bit. It's more important to get the right use in there. This is a long-term decision, and that is certainly our goal, is to, yes, move it along quickly, but not to do it at the detriment of making the right decisions. So I just want to assure you that. Thank you again for everything. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we set the next meeting date for May 18th, 6 o'clock, here at Town Hall. We'll choose the meeting room as it's available, whether it's next door or here.
Oh, second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion's accepted. Okay, just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, taking time out of the evening, and do we have a motion to adjourn tonight's?
So moved.
Seconded? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.